Hi, folks. In early Texas history, Mexico had made finally what they wanted to do. They had become an independent people. In 1821, they had become an independent nation, if you will. And one of the dreams they had, of course, was to conquer Texas. Now, the only problem with that was there was a lot of people who were lost in that area due to the fighting and just due to everything that was going on in Texas. So even though they had won, they were still trying to figure out what to do next. And one of those ideas was to kind of look at Texas in a slightly new way. It was as if they wanted to see Texas now as a frontier. Even though there was a lot of life lost, they thought maybe we could still find out more about Texas by calling it a new land to be challenged. Well, among these people that had the opinion of this was the fact that a man named Miguel Ramos Arizpe. Now, let me read this to you. The creation of independent Mexico in 1821 marked the beginning of the Mexican national period in Texas. During this period, which lasted from until 1836, the Mexican government established new policies to deal with affairs in Texas. One of its major goals was attracting new settlers into the region, as Miguel Ramos Arizpe had recommended. Like Ramos Arizpe, many Mexican officials viewed Texas and other northern frontier territories as vital in protecting the rest of the country. A frontier is a region marking the farthest edge of the settlement by a country or a group of people. Besides Texas, territories on the Mexican frontier included New Mexico, Arizona, and California. So even though they wanted the place, they saw it as partly a frontier because of the fact that there wasn't that many people there. And second, because it could be like a buffer so that they could protect themselves from any possible invader. So it worked both ways. And they really believed that if they could just bring some settlers in, that would be a really good thing to do. Well, how do you do that? Here's the problem. The Texas population was generally greatly reduced by the Mexican War of Independence. As a result, there were not enough people living in Texas to make it an effective buffer. Nobody there to defend the country. So what would you do about it? You got to bring people in, right? So invaders or attackers would pass through the territory with no resistance. The Mexican government therefore looked for ways to bring new settlers to the area. First, officials encouraged people from other parts of Mexico to move into Texas. However, few people were willing to make this move. Most Mexicans viewed the frontier as a harsh, distant land. They feared living too close to hostile Indian groups. Mexico's next turned to a new source of settlers. A new source of settlers would be the United States. Yes, America. Many American farmers were eager to move into the rich prairies of Texas. The Mexican government agreed to give land to some of those farmers if it would bring settlers into Texas. To distinguish from the Tejanos who already lived in Texas, historians refer to these new, mostly white settlers from the United States as Anglos. Now, interestingly enough, these Anglos were brought in, but there was another man who was very influential in doing this. His name, I forgot to mention, his name was Moses Austin. But I gotta remind you something else. Remember how the Texans originally were settled. It was a place where the Mexican people would bring in a military regiment, set up a presidio, a military outpost. They would bring in clergy to set up a mission and then build their villages around that. But unfortunately, over time, all those things decayed, fell apart, and people were no longer there. Very few people wanted to be living there. So the idea of bringing new people in was considered the way to bring a fresh life to Texas. One or two people became a part of that. One guy named Moses Austin was a speculator of sorts. He was a businessman. He knew how to deal with a lot of, say, the Spanish and others. And so even though he would be successful one day and broke another day, he came in with the idea, I'm going to bring a plan to sell Texas. Now, He told his son about it. His son's named Stephen Austin. Moses Austin had a son named Stephen F. Austin. His idea, bring some settlers in. He would actually invite them. He would bring them in, and of course he would encourage them by saying, "Look at all the farmland you can get. Look at all the opportunity to grow and have a new beginning." That was the enticement. The people who were from the United States wanted to move west, so he became their conduit, and of course, in the process, made money off the deal. Well, Moses first went ahead and talked to a very important figure in Texas, a man named Antonio Marie Martinez. He was like the Spanish governor. The governor did not like U.S. citizens. He ordered Austin out of the city. However, a chance encounter changed the situation. In this city, Austin met a guy named Baron de Bastrop, a Dutch businessman. He called himself a baron, but he really wasn't. However, born Philip Hendrik Nerik Bogle, he had fled to the Netherlands in 1793 after being accused of theft. While on the run, he adopted the fake title and settled in San Antonio. There, he became a successful businessman and a respected statesman. Austin told Bastrop about his colonization plan, and Bastrop decided to help him. Together, the two men met with Martinez. They pointed out that Austin's colony would improve the Texas economy. His presence would also help protect the area from attacks by American Indians or U.S. soldiers. They also noted that Austin had become a Spanish citizen in Missouri and would be loyal to the new Spain. So Austin had done everything. He checked off everything he needed to check off. He'd become a Spanish citizen. Convinced, Martinez agreed to propose the plan to his superiors. Satisfied, Austin returned to Missouri to await news. In the spring of 1821, he learned that Spanish officials agreed to his plan. Austin had their permission to settle 300 Catholic families from Louisiana in Texas. Before he could act on his plans, however, Moses Austin became ill and died. The fate of his colony now lay in the hands of his son. Stephen F. Austin was 27 years old when he learned of his father's death. Austin became determined to carry out his father's plan to bring U.S. settlers to Texas. He traveled to San Antonio de Bihar in August 1821. Erasmo Seguin, a rancher and the alcalde of the town, led Austin to Governor Martinez. The Baron de Bastrop was on hand to translate. Martinez offered to support Austin's efforts to fulfill his father's plans. But in the time since Austin had received his contract, Mexico had won independence from Spanish rule. Consequently, Austin needed a new contract from the Mexican government. Martinez agreed to help him get the approval for that contract from officials in Mexico City. Austin spent the next few months exploring the land east of San Antonio. He was seeking a good location for his colony. In the end, he picked the rich farmland in the area of the Brazos and Colorado River, some 11 million acres on the Gulf Coast plain. A colony there would have a mild climate, fertile soil, water, and plenty of timber for building. Wild game was also plentiful. In addition, the site was near the coast where settlers and supplies could arrive by ship. In his journal, Austin described his location like this. Let me read this to you real quick. The prairie comes to the river and affords the most beautiful situation for a town or settlement. The bluff is about 60 feet high. The country back of this place and below for about 15 miles as far as that we went is as good in every respect as man could wish for. Land all first rate, plenty of timber, fine water, beautiful rolling. With a location chosen, Austin returned to the United States to prepare. From Louisiana, he sent a report to Governor Martinez. It specified the colony's proposed location, which included land along the Gulf for a port. Austin's plan detailed how he initially intended to distribute land to his colonists, although these terms later changed. Each household would receive 640 acres of land. Those who provided valuable services or items such as cotton gins, devices that separate cotton fibers from seeds, would receive extra land. Where possible, each land grant would lie on a river to provide water for farming and transportation. Settlers would pay Austin a fee of $12.5 cents per acre for his services. And the story continues. Thanks for watching.